Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm DJ Munzik, head of marketing here at KETIV, and welcome to another KETIV Virtual Academy. It's Thursday. We're excited to have our guest with us, Jim Byrne from Autodesk. He's joining us along with Marco Trinidad from the KETIV team. Marco's going to be showing you some demos today as we go through some of these features. And just take note that you're going to see these little demo flags appear in the corner of the slides that Jim's presenting, and those indicate Marco will be providing a live demo of that feature coming up later in the presentation. So yeah, we're here live today. So drop any questions you have in the Q&A panel in Zoom or in YouTube chat, and we'll respond as best we can. Before we get started, I did want to provide some great Inventor resources that we've come and put together over the past few months from other team members on our automation team. We've got this great session around custom iLogic snippets that we just did a couple weeks ago. We have some automation accelerator utilities. These are Visual Studio templates that allow you to build your own Autodesk add-ins along with a tutorial. And then on the right-hand side, our Easy UCS add-in. This is a custom plugin we created for Inventor that allows for easier management of your UCS. So please go check those out. We've got those QR codes for you to go grab. And yeah, anytime you need any help with automation, you find yourself wanting to do more with scripting, automation, you're stuck in Inventor, we have a lot of ways to help you, from consulting to training to support. So, hit one of those QR codes, come to the website, grab a contact us form, and let us know how we can help. All right, before I let the heavy hitters take it over with actual content, I'll get my marketing stuff out of the way here and just do a quick poll. We just love to know where we are with you guys. So if you would, please, as I launch this poll, indicate which version of Inventor you guys are using today. Maybe some of you have bitten off and already grabbed the 2026 version. Other of you maybe in the older versions, but I'll give you a few more seconds to respond. I've already got pretty good engagement on this one. And then I'll show you guys what you put in. Actually, I'm a little surprised. You guys are forward thinking. Let me show you what we have here in terms of results. So yeah, it looks like we have 22% have already upgraded to 2026, which is impressive. A large majority of you are still on 2025, right, in the version behind. So yeah, it looks like we have some good early adopters here, Jim. So let's show
Yeah,
them
that's great.
if they're in 2026, maybe something they haven't seen yet, and then if they're not yet there, what they're going to see if they upgrade. So take it away, Jim, and let me know how I can help in the presentation.
All right. Thank you, DJ. Yeah, like you said, it's where we do see more and more adoption of the latest release, especially around this time. It's we have some of you just like to wait a little bit longer, maybe even up to 12 months before you upgrade. Some of you are waiting until dot one to come out, which has come out in the summer. Dot two is coming out in about a month. And so we're not only going to be talking about the release in the spring back in late March, but we'll talk about dot one, some of the enhancements there. Not quite ready to talk about dot two yet. There's a lot of great enhancements coming, but you'll see more of that in the next few weeks. So the enhancements that we're talking about today they're driven in several ways. Many of you know this, that we have what's called the Inventor feedback community. This is where you can access early builds of Inventor, and you can test the features and the enhancements that are coming. And you can also provide your own candid feedback about what you see and what your needs are. There's also Inventor ideas. This is another place that you can share your ideas and future enhancements that you want to see. The Inventor Forum, a lot of you know about the Inventor Forum. This is a place where you can share your own knowledge, you can help others, you can ask your own questions if you have them. I hear a lot, especially if you're using things like iLogic. I constantly hear our customers talk about how helpful the forum is when it comes to creating iLogic within their own models. And then there's also Inside the Factory events. This is where you can join the Inventor development team. That you can do this online, or you can also do it in person, depending on where it is. And so these events help you to learn, again, what's coming, what does the Inventor roadmap look like down the road. And you can also, of course, this is a very good place to provide your own feedback to the development team. So, Inventor 2026, the categories that we're going to cover, these are the buckets. The general enhancements, I've got some things to kick us off there. Followed by part modeling. There's some more sheet metal enhancements, followed by assembly modeling and drawings. And then we have some things we want to talk about in terms of interoperability, whether it's a step file or if you're participating in BIM projects. And we'll talk a little bit about Inventor and Revit together too. And before we kick off the general enhancements, here's another poll question regarding what is keeping you from upgrading. Then DJ, he'll pull that up. This is actually a fill in the blank. I'm new to this. I'm only used to options where you can pick which one that you want. So this is pretty interesting. We already talked about this a little bit. Some of you might be waiting until the next point release because you just like to make sure that everything is has been fully tested in the software before you install it on everyone's machine. Or perhaps you're waiting for a specific type of enhancement before you upgrade to the next release. So go ahead and fill that out. Curious to see what some of your answers are. And actually, I don't know if I'm able to see them, DJ.
I can see them rolling in. It looks like we've got about a third of folks. They're still coming in, so I'm going to let them keep typing since we are asking them to use the keyboard, which is kind
Yeah.
of exciting. Like you said, I haven't done this before either. So I'm going to give you guys about another 20 seconds while I yammer on. And this is
Yeah.
what they do in the news, right? When they tell the producers, like, stretch, burn time. All right. All right. So we're
Well,
going to take it down now, and I'll just go over some of the responses. I guess I'll just share them out. So hopefully you guys all behaved yourself. Can you see the responses, Jim? I guess not.
I think we cannot.
Okay, so I'm gonna read through a few because I can see them. Coworkers not able to down save version. There's some that outline time constraints. There's a few people that say that. Some people are worried about bugs in the new release, waiting for full testing and validation of the product, waiting for their external PLM system to be upgraded. So they might have some
Yep.
dependencies on their own integrations, which doesn't surprise me.
Yep.
Let's see what else. New computers, so they're getting new hardware. Some are planning to do it in the next couple of weeks. They're rolling out 2026. So yeah, it looks like mixture of time constraints, management decisions, um, stuff like that. So yeah, I think pretty good mix.
Yeah. So it's interesting the version one that came up because and maybe Marco can speak to this too, but when most of you I think know this who are on the call that you do have the ability to save back well, not necessarily save back a release, but if you save a file in 2026 and you open it in 2025, you can do that. I believe I don't test this out myself, but it will treat it as like an AnyCAD reference. Um, and you need to be on the latest point release of 2025. And the same goes true if you are saving a file in 2025, you can open it in 2024 as long as you're on the latest point release of that
Yeah, that's
version.
true. So it will prompt you if you don't have it already installed an interoperability installation. But you are able to open it like in any CAD. You'll have some structure in it because it is an Inventor file, but it won't have the full design history and features that it was created off of. But it's still
Yep.
helpful if you need to reference and use it or insert it into another assembly or file or documentation as well.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thanks, Marco. All right. So I think we can dive in, make sure that we give Marco some, and I don't know if, I think DJ mentioned this. I'm going to be covering some of the enhancements. I'll introduce them and Marco will be demonstrating some of those live pretty soon, especially for those of you that are just jumping on. So for general enhancements, we're going to open this up with the open dialog. Now, when you open and save your documents in Inventor, you're going to see that very familiar Windows experience that you might see in other applications, but you still have direct access to the items that you need for Inventor data. You're going to find the workspace that you're used to seeing. The library tree is available. Those are over on the left. You can also see the active project that you're in and the options that you're used to seeing for editing settings. And as you would expect, you've got the option to filter out Inventor files that you want to see, and maybe file details and additional options for opening and saving that data. And if we're talking about opening and saving, it makes sense to talk about creating new files too. This one was actually new in 2025.2, but it's worth mentioning. If you are, sometimes you want to gain access to the folder where the templates are stored for creating new documents. Well, now it's faster than ever because there's two new buttons that you may have already seen if you're in 2025 to either copy the file location for the templates or just go directly to it in your Windows File Explorer. So now when you install Inventor 2026, we realized that a lot of you like the dark theme. And so this is the default experience. And you can, of course, change it to the light theme. If you like I like both. I like the light theme and the dark theme. But the default is now the dark theme for 2026. Color schemes are now more accessible in the view ribbon. There's a new pull down in appearances for those. And when you apply custom colors to the color scheme, the line thickness, this what you see over on the right, that line thickness applies to 2D and 3D sketches. And when it comes to multi-monitor handling, in the past, before 2026, if you're using an add-in and that add-in has dialog boxes, and most of you I know are using multiple monitors. So if for some reason that other monitor gets unplugged, maybe you're moving or something like that, then you might lose access to that dialog. And that's something that's been addressed in 2026. And a lot of you like the ability to control the prompts for Inventor, those dialog boxes that are coming up. Well, you can specify which ones you want to see or hide or how often you want them to show. This is something that's already been there. But if you need to change any of these preferences, it's a pretty long list. And so it can take some time to find the one that you want. So now at the top, you can quickly filter or search for the one that you want to make changes to. Part modeling. So for those of you that are using the shell command, it's been modernized using the property panel now. There's actually quite a few commands that I'm going to talk about today that utilize the property panel. And so this, in the shell commands case, it removes the tabs that you saw in previous releases. And so it makes it a little bit easier to use. There's also a new updated workflow in there to round offset or create rounded offsets on corners. And then I also have great news about patterning features. The rectangular, circular, and sketch-driven patterns have all been modernized, again, using the property panel. And there's new workflows for a rectangular and circular pattern. You'll see there's an option for irregular spacing and angle. And we can have a look at that in this video. Like I said, Marco is going to be showing you some of these things, but I've got some brief pre-recorded clips. And here you can see that when you select some of these instances, you have the option to enter in a variable spacing for each one. So it's a real intuitive interface once you start using it. But you can do the same thing for the circular pattern when it comes to angles, add irregular spacing to those. But you'll notice that it's got a great user interface for going between the property panel and the graphics view to select those instances and use those manipulators. And then for those of you that enjoy using the simplify command inside of your assemblies, this is now available in the part environment. And so the way it works is you can exclude bodies and features. And there's a setting to quickly exclude bodies by size, just like you would for parts inside of assemblies. So this one looks like an assembly, but it is in fact a multi-body part. Like I said, you can do this for features or bodies in those part documents. So very cool feature for those of you that want to quickly simplify your part documents and maybe even create model states. So you can decide if you want the detailed or simplified model state inside of your assembly. And still with the simplify command, if you look here, you can also recognize imported geometry as features and exclude those. Here's a very simple example of a channel that has several holes and slots. There's a channel cut going down the middle. It literally takes a couple of seconds to simplify this imported body. I think what I did in this one is I opened up the imported body. I think it might have been a step file. I clicked simplify and I clicked OK. That's literally it. It took about 1 second to simplify. And so for sheet metal, the contour flange, once again, is now taking advantage of the property panel. It also has some additional features. You'll notice that it has a much more improved preview that you can see on the screen there. And you can utilize manipulators in the preview as well to change the size of your contour flange. And then the corner round has also been updated with a new interface. And I believe in this case, it's faster to select the edges that you want to add corner rounds to with the window selection. And for the punch tool, you'll notice, actually, before I show the punch tool, this is showing you some of the new interface for the contour flange and for the corner round as well. But then sorry, I had a bug fly next to me. For the punch tool, you'll notice that it has a brand new interface as well, utilizing the property panel to add those punches and to modify them as well. For assembly modeling, this is a big one. The assembly mirroring has leveled up big time. You now have the option for associative mirror. You can mirror both the geometry and the position of the components and keep them synced to the original parts. And so any changes to those original parts automatically update on the mirrored side. So now you can choose between what you had before, a flat structure with a non-associative mirror, or you can pick mirror pattern. That's what you're seeing in that image up on the slide. And if we could take a look at an example of this too. This one, again, is a pretty quick example. I like it though, because it shows moving components in here too. Like I said, when you pull up the mirror command now, up in the upper left, you'll see options for the flat option or mirror pattern. And after you mirror it, if any of these are sub-assemblies, then you can add components to that sub-assembly. And then, of course, you don't have to select them or you don't have to pick them and add them to the pattern. It will do that for you. In this case, it's a couple of fasteners that we're adding to that subassembly. And then for those of you that are using model states, the browser has been simplified. You'll notice that that's a change across the board, not just for model states, but the browser, now the model states are located in the representations folder. And if you use model states on a regular basis, then you won't have to create the model states every time you make a new part because you can pre-create those model states and add it to your existing part or assembly templates, saving you some time there. And then now, for those of you that enjoy using the Excel spreadsheet to edit your model states, there's now a table editor for that. So you can still do it both ways. And there's also a blue dot indicator for features or parts that are affected by model states that you'll see over in the browser. Um, and then for the bolted connection, there's a pull down now in cases where there's multiple thread designations. Before this, it was a bit of a workaround. And then in drawings, the jagged line display for certain projected views is improved for a cleaner visual. This is going to be something that applies to new drawings that you're creating, new views that you're making. I believe you can still modify existing views if you want to edit those, but by default, they're going to come up the default way, the default visual. And then break views that you have in your drawings, they can now contain sketch lines and dimensions. So this gives you a bit more control over the location of those break lines. And so you have the option to do it the old way, the legacy way for broken views, or you could use a sketch-based broken view that is editable. You can go in and make changes to it. Oh, sorry, this one was showing a preview of these two. Maybe I think it shows the broken view. Yeah, so here you can see the broken view where you have the option to create a sketch-based view. And if you want, you can go into the browser and edit that sketch if you want to make any changes to it. Here's another one for, well, dimensioning. Inventor now supports two new dimension types, linear sum and angular sum. And so these might be useful to you where if you have a pattern, you can place a base dimension, and when you right click on it, you can create a sum dimension showing total length or angle. We'll see that again before I move on. So again, once you create that base angle, you can right click on it and change it to linear sum or angular sum. And then finally, inside of drawings, if you find yourself hiding bodies or hiding edges a lot, maybe to clarify a view, then you can just pick it and then use the shortcut key Alt V on your keyboard to hide it. So just select it, Alt V, and you can hide those items. Okay, so on to interoperability. This is my last bucket besides 2026.1 that we'll talk about later. So before we talk about Revit, now in Inventor 2026, assembly annotations are supported for JT and STEP. And then there's also support for the import of assembly annotations from JT or STEP version 242. Just remember that when you export an assembly, that the annotations are exported from the top level of the assembly and not the child components that are inside. Okay, for Revit, there's a lot to cover for Revit interoperability. Some huge enhancements, starting with property information. There's a new pull down. When you go to the project tab in the iProperty dialog, you'll find at the very bottom Revit category. And there's also a Revit category column that can be placed in your bill of material. And the great thing about the bill of material too is If you open a part and change the Revit category, that's great. In the BOM, you can pick on multiple items and change them all at the same time. And when you go to the BIM interop ribbon, you're going to find a new coordinate system panel. It has the existing UCS command that you saw before, but then now it has a new command for placement. And so with the placement command, it will pop up in the property panel. You can select the inventor model orientation that you want to use and the insertion point where it's going to align in your Revit model for the Revit location. And it's important to note that you don't need to be on the latest version of Revit to use this. The placement command is supported for versions 2023 and newer for Revit. And then also notice that there's an include properties panel where you can select checkboxes for the properties that you'd like to include in the Revit export. And then in the simplify and export option, there's similar features that you saw in 2025, but with more additions. There's a new structure option for parts only when exporting your Revit file, which basically means that all the visible parts in that simplified assembly are going to get a Revit element in the exported RVT. And then you can also select your Revit template. You can use the installed templates that you have if you have Revit installed, or you can also use your own custom templates. And then if you want to export the Revit file, of course you can do that. If you want to export the IFC file, then that option is available in the same property dialog, so you can do it at the same time. And another quick thing about IFCs is you can export the latest version of IFC. So you've got the options for IFC IFC3 or IFC. So you have the latest version of IFC that you can export. And there's a lot of improvements for the latest version. There's, for example, enhanced specification capabilities are available. There's sometimes better integration with the latest technology. There's improved readability and ease of access to documentation. And so there's a full list of capabilities that are available or enhancements that you might find with the latest version. And you can look that up and research it if you'd like. We could take a look at a demonstration of some of these things too. Like I said, if you go to your properties dialog, then you can select the Revit category there. And once again, that's available inside of the bill of material too for your assembly. And when we go to our BIM content, there's the new button for placement. Again, you can select the origin inside of your model and orientation, and then specify where you want to align it inside of the Revit model. And then include properties. This panel, once again, enables you to check the items that you want to include for metadata inside of your Revit file. And in the simplify command, there's a few new options in here where you can specify the Revit template that you want to use. And then again, you can choose the Revit version that you want to export to. And then the option to select parts only so that all of the parts that are visible in the design are going to get their own Revit element. And from here, this is where I think just before that, we can specify the IFC file export as well. And then over in Revit, here we're placing our design. You can see the metadata over on the right that we brought in from Inventor. And then you'll notice how this design can be placed inside of your Revit model based on the placement command that we used earlier to align the Inventor origin location with the Revit model. All right, so that leads us over to Marcus. Or Marco, I'm sorry, Marco, to have him show his screen.
All right. Let me see if I can share it.
I have a Marcus on my team, Marco. Sorry about that.
I think you might need to stop sharing. Okay. Share mine. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I am in Inventor 26.1.1 now. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new file. I'm going to start off with sheet metal. Open up my sheet metal template. And the tool that I'm going to highlight here is going to be the contour flange. So we're going to start out with a new sketch. Go through this here. I'm just going to create that profile that my flange is going to follow. 3. Okay. So we're going to go into our tool now. And you can see it is updated to be that modern properties window, which I think is very helpful. In general, all these windows, you're going to go from top to bottom. So I'm going to go down this list here and fill out my information for my flange. And it's a lot easier, especially in here. You aren't switching between tabs. You have all your bend properties in here, your behavior. If you need to make modifications to your sketch, you can also hop over to your sketch tab, make any changes that you need to make, and then quickly hop back into the contour flange. All right, so it did select it already. It did grab my profile, create my body, follow the sheet metal rule that I want it to. Now I can go over down to behavior. In this instance, I don't have two separate planes that I can select, but you also have the option to select between. So you can select two different planes as your starting and end points. In mine, I don't have that. So I'm just going to create a asymmetrical flange here. I'm just going to move it in either direction. And then select the position. So for this one, I'm going to leave it on default. And if I did have multiple flanges, I can also apply this one and then move on to the next one. But for now, I'm just going to click OK, and that'll create my contour flange on this part. So that is a lot more streamlined, in my opinion, than the previous version of Inventor where you had the multiple tabs. It's just a little bit easier, makes it a little bit quicker to make changes and to add in those properties. Another one that's been updated is the corner round. So go over here to our corner round. You can see it almost looks like the one in our 3D part where we have our selection options on the right, and then we can select through our edges. So I'm just going to go through, select some of these corners on this part, and then make an adjustment on the size. And then once again, you can apply this one and then move on to the next one pretty quickly here using the little apply button here at the bottom right. In my case, I just want to add in those 4 corner rounds. So I'm going to add those in and then click OK. Now, next one is going to be the punch tool. So I'm going to go to create a point in here. And it's going to be my insertion point for my punch. Just going to add that right there. And this one has also been updated to have a properties window. But it did also make it a lot easier to make adjustment to your punch. So if I click on the keyhole, you can see it picked my insertion point. But now I have all the parameters that are associated with that punch, and I can make modifications in here. So if I need to make this taller, if I need to make the hole diameter different, I can make those changes in the dropdown. And that gets adjusted to whichever properties you have associated with your punch. So if I switch over to this other connector, you could see the parameters window switched over to all of those parameters associated with this one. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. I can also do it across a bend. If this were to be over here, maybe on this fold, it would create that cut across that bend, similar to how we have it in the cut tool. Okay, so then we have our slot in there. And next one up, this is also the same in the 3D part environment as it is in the sheet metal. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a rectangular pattern. And you can see this has been updated as well to include an irregular distance for either direction here. So I'm going to select that punch that I added in. Select my direction either by selecting a line or an edge, or select the axis. And this one I can select my x-axis and add in, let's say, 5 of these keyholes, and then adjust the distance between them. Okay. Now, if I wanted to add in an irregular distance to any one of these, I can click the plus right next to irregular distance, and then it'll prompt me to select what distance I want to adjust that to. So let's say for this one, I want it to be 3 inches, and I'm going to select this first one. So now you can see that specific distance for that instance changed. The rest of these did remain that 2-inch apart. Or let's say I needed to make this one a little bit smaller than the others. I can change that. And then I can go through and maybe add in a second one. Maybe this last one also needs to be a different distance. I can make that change. And then same thing goes for adding in a second direction. If I want to add in a second direction, let's say in the z-axis, I wanted 3 of these. Let's flip that around. I can change the distance maybe on this second one, switch that to 2 inches apart. Okay. And then same thing as we had before, we do also have the extents option. If we have a boundary that we need to constrain this to, we can fill that information down here at the bottom. Now that does go for the circular pattern as well. And we also did cover this in a KVA previously, so you can also check that video out where I go through it more in depth, and also the circular pattern. Okay. Let me close, or let me open up my next part here. So I'm going to go ahead and open. And one quick note, I've been working in 26 now for a little bit. Using the open panel here, having access to the Windows tab and the quick access window is very helpful. It's a really good quality of life improvement that they added here. Especially when I'm working on a file regularly, I can add it up here to my quick access folders temporarily. And while I'm working on that project, I can open those up. Okay, so right here, you can see I have this light pole. It's a pretty long pole that takes up a lot of my drawing space. One of the improvements is adding in a break view. So I'm gonna go ahead and select this post and add in my line. So in previous versions, this break, these are all the options we had. Let me edit my break in here. This is the options that we had in here. We didn't have a clear way to add in a specific point to where that break gets added. But now you can see in 2026, if I drop down the break, there's a sketch associated with that. So in here, now I can add in a dimension and maybe more clearly decide where that break happens. Let me go ahead and create that measurement. And then same thing for the bottom. And it'll adjust correctly to that distance. Okay. And next up in the assemblies, open this one up. Okay, so one of the improvements made in the assemblies is having a multi-select for constraints. So for these legs that I need to place on my table here, previously I'd have to go in and manually add in a constraint one at a time between the tops and each one of these edges. Now I can go in here, select the bottom of my table, and then using the drop down under the constraint selection, we do now have the option to multi-select. So I can go in here, select the tops of all of these legs, and apply that constraint. So now they're all going to lay flat. And then I can go through and add in my other constraints that I need. So I need to add in flush. And I'll go through and add in all of my other constraints. But adding in the multi-select makes it a little bit easier, a little bit more streamlined to add in constraints, especially repetitive constraints like this tabletop where I need to constrain each of these legs to each corner. I'm adding in 3 or 4 constraints per leg. It definitely helps narrow down those the number of clicks I have to make to fully assemble this. I added my last one here just to put this one on the corner. Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to go through adding each one of these, but it's a lot more helpful having the multi-constraint selection inside of our assemblies. Okay, and I think those are the demos that I had. And then I think Jim has a few more slides on the .1 update as well.
Okay. Thanks, Marco.
So you guys got to see some of the stuff Marco is showing, Jim went through. We're going to do a quick demo, another quick poll. I'm going to launch this one right now just to see what you guys are finding the most exciting over what Jim and Marco have covered so far before we jump into the 2026.1 stuff. So yeah, what's going to impact you the most? What's got you excited? We got answers coming in now. Not surprisingly, not because it's not cool. The BIM stuff looks awesome, but our audience is not a huge AEC audience. So that one's currently in last. We'll see how it shapes up in the race here. But that was really awesome to see how the BIM workflows are integrated better. That was cool. We'll go ahead and end this and share the results now. So yeah, sheet metal, associative gearing, future patterning, the down and dirty work in there is what people are excited about. And then the performance improvements, lagging, but not as bad as the BIM workflows. Like again, I know that we do have customers that build systems that have to go into factory settings. So
Yeah.
I guess somebody will get value from that.
This is really interesting because we didn't talk about performance in this webinar, and usually that is something that comes up because over the past 8 years we've had a team on the development team that is 100% geared toward performance, improved performance, because that was the number one request for years and years and years. And so every year for the past 8 years, they've been adding improvements, especially to large assemblies and drawings. And there's some of you who are still on previous releases of the software, which is very interesting because if you are upgrading from, let's say, 2022 to 2026, all that performance improvement is stacked. And so you're going to see tremendous improvements if you're working on very large assemblies or drawings. So it's something to keep in mind for those of you that are looking to upgrade to 2026 from previous releases.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Jim. But before we jump into the next section, Brian asks a question for Marco because it's relevant to the demos he was just doing. He wanted to know, could you use a window select to grab the appropriate faces for the constraints?
That's a good question. Let me try that here. Let me just change my selection.
Brian's
Now, I
playing
want to
with
say
Marco.
you'd have to be very careful with what your window's selecting. Let me see. Okay, no, you cannot window select a multi-constraint. It's limited to point selection, so you have to go through and select which ones.
See, that would be a very interesting one to bring up to the team. Um, that's a good one. That's a good thought.
Brian adds, yeah, if you go to a side view, grabbing the top face cluster.
Because I can window select up until when I open the tool, then it unselects my selection that I previously had. So actually, I can't share it, but so even if I have a selection already prior, so I know you're able to grab two faces or work planes, and then select your constraint, and it'll automatically constrain those two. With multi-constraint, it won't let you do that because it won't be able to decide which one's the initial and which one's the multi-constraint.
So that's from Brian. Brian, I thought your name looked familiar. I was wondering if that was the Brian I was thinking.
There's comedy back here in the chat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And Brian, I know exactly what you mean. I've been in this industry for over 20 years now.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your questions and your feedback, Ray, too. He points out Windows Select would also grab edges and points. I don't know.
Yeah, so the window selection is for faces and edges, so it doesn't only grab faces.
All right, cool. There is another question from Brian, but we're going to hold off to the question section for that one because it's a little less applicable to where we are now. And I'll hand it back to Jim and let you cover the dot one.
Okay, great. So for dot one, Marco actually brought up one or two things already. So starting with model states, if you are using model states and you're using the table editor, then you've got the option to highlight the differences between those model states, whether something is the same or different from the initial model state that you selected inside of the table. And there's also file path copy when you right click on the name of the component inside the browser. And then when you're inside of sketches, there's the option to flip dimension. So if you yeah, so if you right click on a dimension, you can flip that item to the other side. You can also do this for multiple dimensions. If you use your control key and select a few of them, you can flip them all at the same time if there's a place for that. And then replace reference enables you if you create a constraint to between maybe an edge or another item that ends up getting deleted or removed. Of course, you have a broken reference. You can right click on that sketch segment and then replace reference. I've got a visual so you can see some of these things too in just a minute. Marco mentioned this. There's the multi-select option for constraints. Some of you might actually be familiar with this. This came from a company called QuickSert, and now that technology has been implemented into out of the box inside of Inventor for multi-select constraints. There is a counter that's available that lets you know how many faces you have selected for that item, and you can now double click on joints and iMates to edit them. If you have multiple, let's say, fasteners inside of your assembly, you can control select over more than one of them and change the size all at once. And if you are using tube and pipe and you want to delete routes, you can multi-select those from the browser and delete them at the same time. And if you're recovering model dimensions for your drawings, you might have found that if you want to show that dimension in the regular view and let's say the detail view, it's not enabling you to do that. That's now you can show that dimension in more than one view in the drawing. Even if it's not necessarily a standard, they want you to have the ability to do that. Auto project options, I'll show you inside of the video next. And detail view labeling. If you have a detail view, let's say A, and a detail view B, and you delete B, and then you add another one, it will go to detail view C. But not anymore. If you delete that detail view, the latest detail view, it will reuse that value for the next one. And you can see a little bit of that here. These again are some of the things that you'll find in .1. Actually, I'm going to skip up to here. Again, you can right click on dimensions inside of your sketch to flip the dimension. Once again, you can do that for more than one dimension at a time. And replace reference. If you have a broken reference in your sketch, then when you edit that sketch, there's an option to edit reference, and then you can pick another item that's there in the model to replace it. And then again, for retrieving dimensions, if you have something like, I think this is where we place a detail view in here. If you place a detail view in and you want to use that same dimension again inside of that view, then you can still retrieve that same dimension more than once. And then for detail views, I just mentioned if you do delete a detail view, it's going to reuse that, especially if it's the latest one, it's going to reuse that same label for the next one. Now, if you delete one in between, then it's going to, then it will jump to the next one. And then this is the option to auto project entities when you're sketching in a drawing. Now for tables, or if you're editing your model states using a table, once again, you can select one of those model states, and then all of the other ones that you check, it will compare the differences between them. Once again, for joints and iMates, when you double click on those joints, you go into edit mode for those. Oh, and when you right click again, right click in the browser, then you can copy the file path if you want to use it somewhere else or paste it somewhere else. And then once again, if you are using tube and pipe and you want to very quickly clean up some of your routes, then you can multi-select those to delete them. And if you have a lot of fasteners, again, multi-select inside of your browser and change all of the sizes. Here again is the quick cert technology that's now in 2026.1. Marco was showing this. You can select multiple faces in the same command to add that constraint. And then you can see it's showing a counter too for the number of faces that you have selected. And then you'll notice too that it still added those separate constraints inside of the browser for all of them. Okay, so that wraps it up.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. We do have a couple minutes left for questions. We did have one early when we were talking about upgrading. Brian asked, he's in the middle of an implementation that looks like it's going to impact his ability to adopt Inventor. So looks like his plan was to jump from 2025 Inventor and Vault to move from 20, sorry, I'm butchering this. Let me just read it. The plan was to jump to 2025 Inventor and Vault next year. Is the jump from 23 to 26 an issue? I feel like Vault, we should only hop 1 year. So the idea of upgrading and skipping a version, I guess. Marco, we can't hear you, bud.
Yeah, so for upgrading, I want to say you can usually do 2 years at a time. So I think you would need to do an incremental one in there to either 24 or 25 before doing 26. But if our team's helping with that, we can definitely guide you through that upgrade.
Yep. Currently in a project, so yeah, just ask your project lead. We'll definitely usher you through that transition. We have a chat that came in from YouTube as well. They wanted to know, do the favorites folders set in the IPJ files still show up in the file open window or only Windows quick launch favorites?
I believe they're still going to show up in the, yeah. So I don't think I could share my screen right now, but when you click on open at the very top of the window, there is also going to be your vault and your workspace. Here, let me share this really quick. So let me switch over to a project. For example, I have my vault project in here. I have something open. So all the files are going to show at the top of your open dialog box. Let me close all these up before I switch. So all of those folders mapped. So for example, my workspace, my libraries, and my recent folders, and my favorites, if I had them mapped in here, those would still be up here at the top. And then underneath that is where you get your usual Windows folders and quick access locations.
Well, good question, Claudia. And we have another question here from Daniel. Will the view reps have the check boxes as well, or just the model states?
I think you're referring to the table,
Yeah,
right?
I think so too. Yep.
I don't believe the view reps have that, if I'm correct.
Yep, I think you're right.
In the browser.
In the browser.
There.
I don't think I have a model state sample that I can open up at the moment, but I don't believe the view reps have that, just the model states.
Yeah, I think it is just the model states.
Neat. If there's no other questions that anybody wants to drop in, I think that's about it for today. I wanted to thank Jim for your time coming and sharing. I know you do this for Autodesk, but we love having you part of the community, being able to answer this live for our audience. And it's one of our most popular topics. So thanks so much for your time. Marco, thanks for preparing all the demonstrations for us. And once again, if anybody has any questions about Inventor, how to introduce automation into your processes, please just reach out to us. Marco's available. He'll send you the right person. You can reach out to me or anybody at KETIV, and we'll take care of you. So I think that's it for today. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Marco.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you,
guys.
everyone.
We'll end it here. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.